Hello Muslim friends of the world. Delhi, India. The afternoon heat shimmered above the marble steps of Akshara Mandir, one of the largest temples in South Asia. Thousands of devotees gathered in the courtyard, their chants rising in rhythm with the ringing of bells. Garlands of marigolds covered the altar, and clouds of incense drifted lazily into the golden sky. At the center stood Pandit Ravi Shankar Das, the nation's most respected spiritual leader, a man whose teachings on peace, karma, and the soul had filled television screens and stadiums for over 30 years. Draped in saffron robes, his calm presence commanded silence. Yet behind his serene expression, his eyes seemed unsettled, searching. As he gazed upon the towering statue of a deity before him, a quiet question echoed in his heart. Do you really hear us, or have I been speaking to stone all my life? For months, something had been stirring deep within him. He had begun seeing a recurring dream. A man in white robes, standing in the middle of a desert, smiling gently, whispering words Ravi could not forget. La ilaha illallah. There is no God but God. At first, he dismissed it as a strange vision, a trick of the mind. But the dream came again, and again, 10 times, 20, until it was impossible to ignore. He searched the scriptures, asked other gurus, meditated for hours, but no one could explain it. Then one night, while traveling to Varanasi, his bus nearly plunged off a cliff when a tire burst on a mountain road. In the chaos, as people screamed and prayed, Ravi survived untouched. And in that moment of silence after the near-death experience, he heard the voice again, calm, familiar, almost inside his chest. You were not saved by gods of stone, but by the one who created you. Something inside him broke, or perhaps awoke. From that day forward, he began to study Islam in secret.
Late at night, behind locked doors, he opened a Hindi translation of the Quran. His fingers trembled as he read, "And do not worship besides Allah that which neither benefits you nor harms you." Surah Yunus, verse 106. Tears blurred his vision. For the first time in his entire life, he wasn't weeping out of loss, but out of discovery, out of truth.
The morning sun rose over New Delhi like molten gold, glinting off domes and spires. It was an ordinary day, until it wasn't. Across India, television networks had been buzzing since dawn. Breaking news: Pandit Ravi Shankar Das will deliver a special address from Akshara Mandir today. Millions tuned in. In villages, people gathered around radios. In cities, TVs flickered in living rooms, temples, and cafes. Everyone waited, curious, perhaps expecting another sermon about peace, unity, or the soul. But Ravi Shankar's heart was racing. He stood behind the heavy golden curtain, his hands trembling slightly. The Quran he had been secretly reading now lay hidden under his robe, close to his chest. He took a deep breath. This is the moment, he told himself. Truth cannot stay buried forever. The curtain opened. A sea of faces stretched before him. Men, women, children, priests in saffron robes. The chants began. Jai Shri Ram, Jai Shri Ram. Ravi raised his hand gently. The crowd fell silent. Even the bells stopped. His voice, calm but heavy, echoed through the grand hall. For many years I have taught you about peace, about seeking truth, about the Creator of all things. He paused. A strange stillness filled the air. Today I must tell you what truth has been revealed to me. Whispers rippled through the hall. Cameras zoomed in. "I have seen in dreams and in spirit that there is only one God. Not many, not idols, but the one who created us all. The one without form, without image, without equal."
He raised his hand to the sky. "There is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger." The hall exploded. Some cried, some shouted in disbelief, others fell to their knees. The temple guards rushed forward, trying to cut the broadcast, but it was too late. The moment had already gone live to every corner of India. Millions watched as the nation's most revered Hindu priest uttered the Shahada on live television. In that instant, the world shifted. That same evening, thousands of his followers, confused, emotional, moved, began gathering outside the temple. Some brought flowers, others brought questions, a few brought anger. But among them, a small group quietly whispered the same words their teacher had said that morning. La ilaha illallah. And thus began what history would later call the Delhi Awakening. The next morning, the world awoke to disbelief. Every headline in India screamed the same name. Pandit Ravi Shankar Das, the priest who declared Islam on live television. News vans surrounded the Akshram Mandir. Police lines were drawn. Protesters filled the streets, some shouting in fury, others chanting in support. The air was thick with confusion, anger, and awe. Inside his modest quarters behind the temple, Ravi Shankar sat cross-legged on the floor, reciting quietly in Arabic. His hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from peace. The Quran lay open before him, and tears glistened on its pages. For the first time in his life, he felt free. Meanwhile, in the courtyard, chaos brewed. Senior temple priests held a frantic meeting. "He's betrayed the faith," one shouted. Another slammed his palm on the table. But outside, the people, his people, were no longer listening. By noon, thousands had gathered around the gates. They carried photos of Ravi. They held signs saying, "We want to hear the truth." What began as confusion slowly turned into movement, not of rage, but of awakening. Then, without warning, a sound echoed through the courtyard, a sharp, cracking sound. One of the smaller statues near the entrance had fallen, its arm broken off. A young man stood before it, breathing heavily, a hammer in his hand. People gasped, the guards rushed forward, but then silence. The young man shouted, "If our teacher was right, if God is one, then why do we bow to stone?" And before anyone could stop him, he struck again. The marble shattered, dust filled the air. Something in the crowd ignited. More people came forward, men, women, even the elderly. Some cried as they struck the idols, others simply stood still, whispering prayers. The great statues that had stood for decades, symbols of countless rituals, began to crumble under the blows of conviction. From a nearby balcony, Ravi Shankar watched, not in triumph, but in tears. He whispered softly, "O Allah, forgive them, guide them, for they are not destroying, they are awakening." By sunset, the once grand temple was unrecognizable. The idols were gone, the altar was bare. In their place, a simple cloth was laid on the ground, facing west. As the call to prayer echoed faintly from a nearby mosque, thousands bowed together for the first time, not to statues, not to symbols, but to the one unseen. And thus, Akshar Mandir became known by a new name, Masjid-e-An-Noor, the Mosque of Light. news of the Delhi awakening spread like wildfire. Within 24 hours, every major outlet, BBC, Al Jazeera, CNN, and NDTV, had broadcast the same haunting footage, a former Hindu high priest whispering the Shahada as idols shattered behind him. For some, it was the dawn of truth. For others, an unforgivable betrayal. The Indian Parliament erupted the next morning. Politicians pounded their desks, shouting about national unity and religious corruption. One minister slammed his fist and declared, "This man has insulted our gods and humiliated our culture. He must be stopped." Meanwhile, outside the temple-turned-mosque, thousands camped for days. Some came to pray, some came to protest. Between them stood lines of soldiers, their rifles gleaming beneath the scorching Delhi sun. But despite the chaos, no violence occurred. When asked why, one soldier simply said, "We felt something different in the air, like peace was stronger than fear." Scholars in Cairo called it the most significant religious event in modern South Asia. In Makkah, the Grand Mufti prayed for Ravi Shankar by name. Across the internet, millions debated, had India witnessed a miracle or madness? Yet Ravi stayed silent. He refused interviews, declined protection, and continued living in a small apartment near the mosque. Each dawn, he woke before the call to prayer, placed his forehead to the ground, and whispered, "Alhamdulillah, all praise for the one who guided me when I was lost." 3 days later, just past midnight, a convoy of black vehicles approached Masjid-e-An-Noor. Armed officers stormed the gates. Their orders were simple: bring him in, end this chaos. The door crashed open. Ravi looked up calmly from his mat. He smiled. "You can arrest my body, but faith has no chains." He raised his hands, not in surrender, but in prayer. The officers hesitated. Something in his eyes, peace, not fear, made them lower their weapons. Outside, thunder rolled across Delhi. Rain began to pour, washing the dust and ashes from the temple ruins. Under the heavy storm, the crowd waiting outside started to chant, "There is no God but Allah." Their voices rose with the wind, echoing through the empty streets.
That night, the government realized something profound. You can silence a man, but you cannot silence truth once it's spoken. And somewhere in a quiet cell, Pandit Ravi Shankar Das smiled to himself, feeling no prison walls, only freedom. The cell was small, cold concrete, a single flickering bulb, and a barred window too high to reach. Yet to Ravi Shankar Das, it felt vast, like a sanctuary. Each morning he woke before dawn, facing west, whispering the same words that had once changed his life. La ilaha illallah. There is no God but Allah. The guards often paused outside his door. Some watched in silence. One young officer, barely 20, whispered through the bars one night, "Sir, teach me the prayer you say." Ravi smiled gently. "It's not just a prayer," he said. "It's a key." By the end of that week, the same guard began joining him, quietly, unseen, bowing beside him on the cold floor. Outside the prison walls, India was changing. Despite the government's attempt to censor the story, it spread like wildfire through phones, whispers, and underground broadcasts. Students gathered in dorm rooms watching hidden clips of Ravi's declaration. Villagers replayed his final words on tiny radio speakers. And everywhere, people began asking questions they had never dared to ask. Within weeks, Masjid-e-Noor became a beacon. Thousands from across India, Muslims, Hindus, Sikhs, even atheists, came not to convert, but to understand, to feel what one man's courage had awakened. The Imam who now led the prayers said in a trembling voice, "He is behind bars, but he leads us still." 3 months into his imprisonment, something extraordinary happened. On a Friday morning, as the guards prepared to escort Ravi to interrogation, they found him already kneeling, his eyes closed. But this time, he was not alone. From every corridor, sound began to rise. Hundreds of prisoners reciting after him word by word, Ashadu and La ilaha illallah. I bear witness there is no God but Allah. The warden, stunned, stood motionless. When asked later why he didn't stop them, he simply said, "How do you silence peace?" Outside India, the movement took on a new name, the Call of the One. Scholars, journalists, and believers across the world shared Ravi's story as proof that faith could not be contained by walls, nations, or fear. In Mecca, during the annual Hajj, pilgrims held up banners that read, "Pray for the light of Delhi." And though he never sought fame, Ravi Shankar Das became a symbol not of rebellion, but of awakening. A man who traded glory for truth, temples for peace, and silence for eternal light. Months later, a letter left the prison. It was written in neat Hindi script, signed simply Ravi Abdullah. It read, "I once believed the divine could be carved in stone. But the real God is not carved, he carves us. And when he does, he breaks us first so we can finally see."